Alright, here's how this video is going to work. I have 5 commanders that I want to talk about today, and these are older commanders. Some of them are newer than others, but there's some really old ones, like we're going to talk about Yidris today. And what I want you guys to do in the comments down below is vote on which one of these ideas you want me to flesh out and build an entire deck around. And even if the commander you choose doesn't win, I'm still going to give you a solid idea and a solid template for how to build a deck around the strategies I'm going to be talking about today. Because let's be honest, we're constantly getting new and improved strategies, but when you go try to find a deck tech around said commander, a lot of them are going to be as old as the commander themselves, so you just kind of got to piece it together. So today I'm giving you guys an option to vote and get a deck tech around a older commander with newer cards. So let's get right into it after you guys click on that one link and claim your free $15. Additionally, you guys can get 10% off all of your Telerian library proxies whenever you use code DT4D. I'm not sponsored with Baron of Dice. This means you guys can get 5% off whenever you guys use the code DT4D or click the link in the description down below. I'm a huge fan of the awesome art on their deck boxes and just the way they look in general, and you can pair up those awesome deck boxes with high quality playmats that match those deck boxes. Thank you, Baron of Dice, for sponsoring this channel. Now, let's start off with my personal favorite. Yidris has been my pet commander since I started this channel. He might actually be the first video I ever did on the channel, which is kind of funny, but this is a 4 CMC creature. He's blue, black, red, and green. He has trample, and whenever he deals combat damage, all of the spells in our hand are going to gain Cascade. What that means is whenever you cast a 3 CMC spell, you're going to flip cards from the top of your library until you find a 2 CMC or less spell, and then you get to cast it for free. Historically, I have built this guy with Wheels, and Wheels is still super powerful. We did get cards like Green Goblin this year that says spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 less to cast, and in addition, he gives all of your non-land cards Mayhem, meaning you can cast them from the graveyard if you discarded them this turn. So he's by far the best wheel card we've gotten this year, and shoving this guy in Yidris would be insane. I've also just been toying with the idea of Otter Storm with Yidris. I am in love with Otter Storm right now, and I think Yidris is a very good candidate for it. How this essentially works is you want something like a Valley Floodcaller on the battlefield. This is a card that says, Flash, you may cast non-creature spells as though they had Flash, and then whenever you cast a non-creature spell, birds, frogs, otters, and rats you control get +1/+1, untap them. And then you want something like Enduring Vitality on the battlefield that allows you to tap your creatures for mana. Now, the goal is to include enough good birds, otters, rats, or whatever in your deck, that way you make Valley Floodcaller impactful enough to start generating mana whenever you're casting these spells and untapping your creatures. We want an average of 3 mana every time we cast a non-creature spell, which isn't hard to do, right? You have Wang Shi Tong, which just is an amazing card. It's a bird. You have Birds of Paradise that already taps for mana, and you can even include stuff like Poison Dart Frog. There's ways to protect our commander with Easy, so there's a lot of birds you could just toss in the deck that are very synergistic with the commander, and then whenever you get Valley Floodcaller on the battlefield, the synergy kind of just churns and you're able to cast the majority of your deck. And then with things like Yidris, he's going to basically double up on your spell cast because of his Cascade ability. So there's a lot of fun things we could do with this Otter Storm route. We could go into a Storm Splitter style strategy. The thing about Storm Splitter is he does want you specifically casting instant sorcery spells, but I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem in this deck. Honestly, we'll probably be running a decent amount of these instant sorceries to justify him. And then Storm Splitter and Enduring Vitality just go insane as long as you have a ton of those instant sorcery spells. But that's just food for thought. You guys can think about it and let me know in the comment section down below. Now, the next one is going to be Omnath, Locus of Creation. This one's insane. This is also a 4 CMC commander. 1 red, 1 green, 1 white, 1 blue. When Omnath enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card, and then additionally, whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life if this is the first time this ability resolved. If it's not, you get to add red, green, white, and blue to your mana pool, and then the third time it resolves, it's going to deal 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control. So basically, you get a ton of value from your landfall triggers, and the goal is to get 3 landfall triggers as much as possible. Now, what makes this super possible here is the new earthbending mechanic. Again, Tough Hard-Headed Teacher is my favorite here because she allows you to earthbend whenever you cast a spell. And then what earthbending is going to allow us to do in Omnath's case is we earthbend on a fetch land, sacrifice that fetch land, then not only is that fetch land going to come back into the battlefield, we also still get to fetch up that other land. So if you're keeping track, that's 3 landfall triggers. And so getting 3 landfall triggers is now as easy as it has ever been, especially in the context of earthbending. So triggering Omnath a ton would be very, very easy. And then we could kind of pair this with, I don't know, maybe even a clone strategy where we try to make non-token or non-legendary copies of Omnath and just seeing how many Omnath tokens we could create using things like molten duplication and things like that, enabling us to essentially kind of make an Omnath storm deck. You know, I haven't toyed a lot with this idea, but I do think it would be cool to make an earthbending deck that is just trying to make as many Omnaths as possible. And then again, we're just generating a ton of mana while we're doing that as well. So again, vote in the comments down below. I think this could be really fun. Maybe we'll throw Sukama in the deck as well as a way to generate a ton of mana, infinite mana if you will, and then casting Omnath a ton would just allow us to draw our entire library. Not sure yet. Again, a lot open to discussion with that one, but I think the strategy there would just be very, very fun. Another card that just keeps getting tech is Marneus Calgar. This guy's insane. 2 generic, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black. He has double strike, and whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, you get to draw a card. He also has an ability. We can sink 6 mana into him and we get 2 tokens, so he can trigger himself, but that's not what we're going to be focusing on, and that does go infinite fairly easily with, you know, things that sacrifice tokens and token doublers. But again, that wouldn't be the goal of this deck. The goal of this deck would be generate as much value as possible, and that's never been easier with Marneus Calgar. There's this new card, the Mechanist Aerial Artisan. This guy allows you to generate a clue token whenever you cast a spell. That means whenever we cast a spell, we're just going to be able to draw a card off of Marneus, which is going to be extremely powerful. We also have Warren Soul Trader. This is a new card. You sacrifice a creature and generate a treasure token. That's Corvold, baby. Now we're sacrificing our tokens, drawing a card off Marneus, and we get the treasure token, which allows us to, again, draw that card and generate mana at the same time. And anytime you're doing that, it's extremely powerful. I did also want to mention Orcish Bowmasters. This guy's not okay, but the fact that he does generate that token every time someone draws an additional card, and if we have something like a sack outlet like Warren Soul Trader on the battlefield, we can generate the token, draw a card, sack it to Warren Soul Trader to draw another card, and then the next time someone draws a card, we get another token, and then we sack it again to the Warren Soul Trader, and it kind of just becomes whenever somebody draws a card, we get to draw 2 cards, and that's kind of like a Consphinx that generates treasure tokens. Again, super busted, does take 2 very specific cards, but I will say making a fair Marneus Calgar might not be the easiest thing to do, so pushing this guy immediately to bracket 3 is not a bad idea either, if you know what I mean. There is also like a interaction with Tivit, Seller of Secrets in Marneus Calgar. If you don't know, Tivit does allow you to generate all of the tokens at the same time, but the fact that clues don't generate the tokens, they just straight out investigate, and investigation is a single trigger, meaning whenever Tivit says he enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, each player gets to vote for evidence or bribery. For each evidence vote, you get to investigate, and for each bribery vote, you get to generate a treasure token. That means the treasure tokens are just going to outright draw you 1 card off of Marneus Calgar, assuming everybody chose bribery. But for every other vote, you get to draw an additional card because, remember, investigation is a trigger that hits the stack. So if 3 people decide that we get to investigate, that's 3 cards we're going to be drawing. So again, there's some fun clue interaction stuff we can put in this deck as well, but even just including things like Anok's Strike Leader to deal 1 damage to each of our opponents, and then we include our Grim Hireling and our Orochi Soul Reaver effects that allow us to generate treasure tokens whenever we're dealing combat damage to each player. There is just a ton of ways to generate a lot of value with treasure tokens and generate a board state at the same time with Marneus Calgar. So if you guys want to upgrade of this guy, we can definitely do that as well. The next one is Helga. Helga's generally new, but I think with airbending, she has just gotten a lot stronger, so I want to go over that. This is a 3 CMC creature, 1 white, 1 green, and 1 blue. It says whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4 or greater, you get to draw a card, gain 1 life, and put a 1/1 counter on Helga. Then she adds mana equal to her power, and then you can use that mana only to cast creature spells with mana value 4 or greater. So what I think makes her a lot stronger here is specifically the airbending cards like Appa. Appa is a 4 CMC creature that has flash, flying, and whenever he enters the battlefield, you get to earthbend any number of other target permanents, and then whenever you cast a spell from exile, you get to create a 1/1 white ally creature token. That's not really what we're worried about. We're worried about the airbending here. This is incredibly powerful with Helga because airbending makes all creatures cost 2 CMC. So now our 4 CMC creatures are only 2 CMC, and if we're reducing the cost of those 4 CMC creatures, you can kind of just make them free in some scenarios. Now, whenever we pair that with a Felidar Guardian that allows us to blink Appa, then Appa blinks our entire board state, including the Felidar Guardian. You can kind of see where we can consistently blink our entire board state, and then Helga is able to use her mana to cast these creatures from exile. And then while we're doing that, remember, we're drawing a card because whenever a creature spell with mana value 4 or greater enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card, gain a life, and put a counter on her. So we're drawing cards, we're generating mana, and then whenever we include things like Venser that untap her whenever they enter the battlefield, we can also just continuously untap Helga. So again, earthbending Helga with the untap effects and the 4 CMC creatures that get their CMC reduced to almost free is just not going to be okay, and I think that can make a very, very powerful ETB Helga deck. Now the next one is one of my personal favorites. We have Ghyrson Starn. I have recently built a CEDH deck of this guy, but we could make it semi-casual, bring it to bracket 3, and give you guys something a little bit more palatable to play against your playgroup. Now the original version of this deck that I built was just 1/1 tokens, and we're going to make all of our 1/1 goblins deal 3 damage instead, which is really good, but the Spellslinger version of this deck is just absurd. What you do is you get a curiosity effect on this guy, and then once this guy has a curiosity effect, every time you trigger an effect that deals 1 damage to your opponents, you're going to basically draw 3 cards. So the card advantage here is absolutely absurd. Whenever you include your Firebrand archers that deal 1 damage whenever you cast a non-creature spell, boom, it gets filtered through Starn, and now Starn is going to shoot everybody, and then you're going to draw 3 cards because Curiosity says whenever enchanted creature deals combat damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. And so the card advantage, it's there, and it's absurd. You could also use cards like Vivi. Now you can filter all of your card advantage through Starn with these effects that trigger off of dealing 1 damage. Even things like Razorkin Needlehead says whenever an opponent draws a card, Razorkin Needlehead deals 1 damage to them. Again, that 1 damage is now going to get filtered through Starn. Starn's going to trigger, and we're going to get the card advantage. So why Ghyrson Starn is so powerful with these curiosity effects is because everything gets filtered through him. If we have Razorkin Needlehead, if we have Vivi on the battlefield, if we have a Kessing Flame Breather that deals 1 damage whenever you cast a non-creature spell, all of those triggers, then Starn triggers for each of them, and since the curiosity effect is on Starn, it filters them, and you get double the card advantage, kind of. You don't have to spread out your curiosity effects is what I'm saying. You can just put them all on Starn and then just keep adding to the insanity, and that's going to add to the card advantage. And by doing that, it gives you kind of an insane deck that draws an absurd amount of cards. We even do have the Niv Mizzet that says whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards. So it's also like a creature curiosity effect. And I think curiosity is just absurd right now. And whenever you put Starn at the helm, it's going to be really fun. And this isn't in the running, but I will say, hey, if you guys have Beator, Kin to All, put the Wall of Bossing Say in there. Boom, you've got 30 power or 30 toughness, and he has 7, so then you just need 3 toughness. This just gets you there. It gets you to 40 toughness right away. Just wanted to mention that. Throw those in the deck together. You're gonna have a great time. With that being said, don't forget to vote in the comment section down below. I'm really happy to see what you guys think of these ideas in the comment section down below, and you guys have anything to add on to those ideas along with voting, you know, go ahead and just let me know. I'm excited to see the conversation. With that being said, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.